Hey everyone, Mr. MC here. This is a guide for round 3 of the 2021-2022 FIA Manufacturer Exhibition season, taking place at Sardegna C in reverse with the Group 3 cars. So as we get started, I'm on the racing medium tires. Yes, I am using the meme car, the BMW Z4, and I have the brake balance at +2 for time trial and qualifying, +3 in the race. So you're going to want to bring yourself all the way to the left side of the track and use the second ambulance on the left as your braking point. So brake as much as you can, taking advantage of the entire width of the track. And then you want to ease off of the brakes as you go in, trying to set yourself up to go for a late apex. You want the car to be pointing towards the next section of the track as soon as you can, so you can start to fully accelerate. If you can, try to take the S's flat out, do a little lift off of throttle if you need a bit more rotation, and use the very end of the barrier that is on the left as your next braking point. So quick burst of braking, ease off of the brakes as you turn in, carefully get on the throttle so you don't end up on the grass. Then use the end of the curb on the left as your turning point, so this is where I start to turn in. And then on the left side of the track, when the grass on the left is about to turn into gravel, that's when you start to ease on the brakes to bring yourself towards the left, and then fully brake just as the curb on the left end. So brake as much as you can in a straight line, nice and easy off of the brakes. Avoid getting more than 2 wheels onto the blue stuff, otherwise you'll get a nasty off-track penalty. But that's pretty much it for the lap guide. Let's go ahead and take a look at the strategies. Alright, so in a moment, the qualifying section will start. Here we go. We're doing a 5-minute qualifying session here at Sardegna C in reverse. And with the tire wear and fuel off, you can pretty much just start to go at it right away. Just get yourself going once you gain control of your car. And because we're doing 50 to 51 second laps, you're going to have a lot of chances to try to get the best qualifying time possible. You really want to make sure that you're able to nail down every single turn, because even a tenth of a second or even a thousandth of a second, a hundredth of a second is going to really matter here, since this is a pretty small track. And in the higher split lobbies, slipstream will be really useful, especially as you go down the main street, as it is possible to gain a tenth or two there, and that can make a huge difference in where you're starting. And if you're in a lower split lobby, qualify alone. Just don't qualify too close to anyone else, so you can focus on getting your turns nailed down with hopefully less of a chance of getting interrupted by someone in front of you messing up and then getting in your way. But anyways, that's pretty much it for the qualifying section of the guide. You have about 5 chances to try to get a good qualifying time, so quite a few chances that you'll have. Just focus on nailing down all of those turns, because every little tenth, every little hundredth of a second is really going to matter here. Especially because it's really difficult to get an overtake done here, and because this race is a grid start. Yes, you heard that right, this race is a grid start, so make sure you have traction control at 1 and just after the race starts, or if you want to play it safe after the first turn, you can then bring it back down to 0 or whatever value you normally have it set to. Don't be like me and forget to turn on traction control. So you don't want to get a lot of wheel spin and potentially spin out. And just be careful through turn 1 and be careful through your first 2 laps, because your tires are going to be really cold. So you're not going to have all that grip, and it's going to be really easy to get caught off guard. And you're going to see that happen with me. So going through this right turn, I can already tell the tires are cold. The car wants to understeer so bad. And in this turn right here, this is probably the most dangerous turn here at Sardegna C. Really easy to end up going off track by going too fast or just not having that grip because your tires are worn out or you have cold tires. You just want to be really careful through there, because that turn caught me off guard. And now I have cold, dirty tires, which is a really poor combination. You don't want that to happen to you. But anyways, so we're doing 30 laps here at Sardegna C in reverse with the Group 3 cars. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a grid start, so get ready to have that traction control handy so you can use it when the race starts. Fuel is a ×2, so fuel is not an issue. The tire wear is a ×4, so tire wear does slowly become an issue For some cars, it'll be an issue earlier on. For others, it may barely be an issue at all. So this will be a bit of a case-by-case scenario depending on the car that you're using and your own driving style. We only have the racing medium tires to work with, but before you start to think that this is a zero-stop race, it's not. This race has a mandatory pit stop, so you need to go to the pit stop at least one time to fulfill the pit stop requirement, so you don't get a 1 minute penalty after the race ends. So theoretically speaking, you can pit as early as the end of lap 1 or as late as the end of lap 29. If you're thinking about trying to pull a sneaky and pitting at the end of lap 30, that's not going to work. You're going to get a 1 minute penalty. Now, when to pit is where it gets a little interesting and a bit less straightforward, because it's going to depend on whether you're going to change your tires or not and what's going on around you. So let's say that there's a bunch of cars ahead of you. They're really fighting it out. They're bleeding lots of time because they're going side to side through a lot of these turns and just pretending that they're in a battle royale game. Then you may want to go in for an undercut, so you pit in a bit earlier than usual so you can try to get that clean air and hopefully not have to deal with any shenanigans. So by the time that they pit, you passed them and you basically overtook them by the time that they're getting out of the pit stops. And that is the other thing, that undercuts are going to be a pretty big thing here, because Sardegna C, both the original and reverse directions, really difficult to get an overtake done. So really the only time you can try to get an actual overtake is either going for an undercut or overcut. And if the car in front of you just spectacularly messes up a turn, which you may see happen a lot, especially through this turn. Yeah, you want to be really careful here. Really easy to mess it up and end up in the grass. It happened to me, and unfortunately happened to this poor soul. But if the car in front of you really messes up and ends up going into the grass, then that does set you up for an opportunity to go for an overtake. Now, when it comes to pitting, when you want to pit, as I mentioned earlier, depends on what's going on around you and what kind of pit stop strategy you want to do. If you are deciding to go in for a tire change, I would say pit around halfway into the race. So anywhere from laps 13 to 16 or even 17 is a good time to pit. If you can, lap 15 is probably the best time to pit for a tire change, as that evenly splits your stints into two 15 lap stints. So that's what I'm doing right here. I'm pitting at the end of lap 15. So I'm doing 15 mediums and then another set of 15 mediums, going in for a tire change. And the pit loss for a tire change is going to be 18 seconds. If you go in for a stop and go, so no tire change, no refuel, your pit loss is 14 seconds. So there's a 4-second difference between changing tires and not changing tires. But the thing is that having a new set of tires, especially with a car that's a bit lighter because it uses up a bit of fuel, is going to be pretty beneficial, as you'll be able to get faster laps done. And that means that it'll be possible to catch up to yourself or even pass yourself if you weren't doing the tire change. But that's going to depend on the cars that you're using in your driving style. So for example, in the Z4, which is the car that I'm using, doing a tire change didn't provide that much benefits for me. I was only 1 second faster doing a tire change compared to not doing one. But for other cars, especially for those that are really bad on tire wear, then the tire change is going to help a lot. And I'm definitely looking at you, Lamborghini Huracan, because that car is a demon spawn. The right tires wear out really fast, and that car will definitely benefit from a tire change. However, there is one big drawback that can be possible with a tire change, and that is ending up behind traffic, because you're losing an additional 4 seconds from the tire change compared to doing a stop and go. So while yes, you are going to be faster with the new tires in a lighter car, you do have the risk of ending up behind cars that haven't pitted yet or that already pitted but didn't change tires. So you do face the risk of getting held up by them. And with Sardegna C in reverse, being pretty hard to get an overtake done at, that can cost you quite a bit of time. So that's something that you do also want to think about. So you'll need to factor that in when it comes to deciding when to pit. So if you can get away with a couple more laps on the older racing medium stint, then you may want to do that if the situation calls for it. So at the end of this run, so this is where I did change tires. My time was a 26 minutes and 40 seconds with the fastest lap being a 52.277. And with this strategy, once again, because you do change tires, your life is going to be a lot more pleasant. You're going to be able to go even faster when you do your second stint. But you do face the risk of getting stuck behind traffic, especially those people who didn't change tires. So that's something that you want to be aware of and factor in when deciding when to pit and if you want to change tires. But once again, if you and or your car are definitely not good when it comes to tire wear, then changing tires is definitely going to be something that you will want to do. So let's go ahead and take a look at this race again, except this time I don't change tires. So I only do a stop and go to fulfill the mandatory one-stop requirement. So for me, doing the stop and go was slightly slower than changing tires. I did it a 26 minutes and 41 seconds with the fastest lap time of 52.3 seconds. So for me, because the Z4 is actually pretty good when it comes to tire wear, I can pretty much get away with doing a stop and go. I don't need to change tires. And with this strategy, it makes it potentially possible for me to keep my position because I'm not doing a tire change. I'm not losing an additional 4 seconds. But that does mean that I need to take good care of my tires because I'm going to be on 30 lap old tires. Whereas with other cars, if they're doing a 15 medium strategy where they do a tire change, of course, then they could potentially catch up to me and take full advantage of me, and I'll have a hard time defending my position from them because their tires are much newer than mine. But of course, this is Sardegna C, so it's going to be a lot harder for them to get the move through, but they'll still have the tire wear advantage. And in my case, the tire wear slowly started to kick in at around laps 20 to 21. That's when I noticed that the tires weren't exactly feeling that good anymore. They were starting to feel a bit worn out. I don't know the better word for it. But for other cars, the tires may wear out a lot sooner. So let's say if you're in the Lamborghini Huracan, as an example again, your tires may start to wear out as early as lap 15. So when the tire wear starts to become a problem will vary on a case-by-case scenario depending on your driving style and the car that you're using. And that's kind of it really. When it comes to this race, just don't forget that you need to pit at least one time so you don't get a 1 minute penalty after the race ends. Whether you want to go in for a tire change or not is going to be up to you. If you and your car are not good when it comes to tire wear, a tire change will be beneficial, but do be aware that that does introduce the risk of getting held up by traffic, especially those who decide not to change tires. And if you are good when it comes to tire wear, then it is possible to potentially get away with a stop and go. So you have the increased chance of keeping your position because you're not changing tires, you're not wasting any more time in the pit stop. But that does mean that you will need to take good care of your tires because the tire wear will slowly start to kick in depending on the car that you're in, which can become a royal pain in the behind and can put yourself at a disadvantage if you end up being way too harsh on your tires. And you also want to think about when you want to pit, especially if you are deciding to change tires. So if you see a lot of battles going on ahead of you and you just don't want to deal with them, an undercut, so pitting earlier than usual, may come in handy. And before I talk about places to overtake and the penalty serving zone, be careful when it comes to the very first turn because you may take the wider line to try to get the better exit from turn 1, but that is also the pit exit area, so you may come across into traffic that are coming out of the pit stops like you see right now. You need to be careful when it comes to that because it can be very easy to want to take that wide line to get yourself set up for the first turn, and then you see a car coming out of the pit stops, and that can lead to a crazy nasty incident. So just be aware that if you see people in the pit area, just get ready to move out of the way so you don't end up running into them and end up causing disaster. But anyways, let's go on over to places to overtake and the penalty serving zone. So the main street, which is where we're at right now, best place to try to get the overtake done, especially with the long straight. So with the slipstream, that can potentially lead you slingshotting past someone and try to get the pass done. But be careful to here, especially if you take a wide line, because that does mean that people may try to pull a little sneaky dive bomb on you, so just be aware of that. Then after that, going through the S's, just be really careful to here. Go in a single file line, as battling it out through here would just lead to a lot of time lost. And also be really careful to here. Here's the penalty serving zone, the only one that is, and this is pretty much the last place to potentially try to go for overtake. But once again, Sardegna C, really hard place to get any sort of overtaking done at. You basically need the car in front of you to really mess up a turn to potentially overtake them, or just overtake them through the pit strategy itself. And that is pretty much it for this strategy guide. Hopefully it helps you out in getting an idea of what you want to do for this race, as this race is going to be a chaotic one, especially with the grid start and just overall being really difficult to get an overtake done here. So strategy, pit strategy that is, will come in really handy here. And once again, this race does have a mandatory pit stop, so you need to pit at least one time so you don't get a 1 minute penalty. Don't pull sneaky and try to pit at the end of lap 30. That's not going to work. So yeah, that's kind of it from me. Thank you guys for the support. Thank you to Playseat for supporting the channel as well. And since I'm recording this on Halloween, for those who do celebrate it, have a safe, good, happy Halloween. And I'll see you guys in the next video. So this is Mr. MCA, wishing you a good race, and I'll see you in the next video.